we'll go to approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda? Andy and Melinda? Yeah.
I want to speak. Thank you. I want to ask how come we don't have delegations put for this meeting? My understanding was that people was asking for it, and the delegation was removed from our agenda. What was the reason for it? We always have the delegation there.
We had one delegation request that was denied based on last Tuesday's delegation. They were advised that an additional delegation was not warranted. They had already had their opportunity to speak, and they were offered a further opportunity to submit any additional material that they wanted included in the agenda. So that was the direction that I was following. The request was to speak about the same item, and our bylaw does not permit someone to come back and speak about the same item. And no matter what the title of the delegation was, the subject matter was the same.
Well, then I want to make motion that we have an unscheduled delegation.
I'll second that.
Would you be seconded?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll put it to a vote there, but this council have 5 minutes each to put their comments with regards to that. I stand by with what the CEO stated there. This is a topic that has been brought up by this individual several times, and we've answered it several times. And the last time would be the last meeting that we had, and it was, you know, we heard it, we allowed extended time for it there. So the fact that we're going to be doing it again, that makes no sense. And it's contrary to a procedural bylaw. Presentation was made, and questions were asked and answered there. So that's mine. Anything else? Right?
Yeah, I'll speak to this. My concerns are the delegation spent 3 minutes not providing any information to council, so I do have a concern with that. The gentleman chose not to speak for some reason of the way the topic was listed. I just don't understand that. But having said that, I have no problem with the delegation coming forward for the second time, because we did take question period away, and I do feel that he did note that he wasn't finished speaking. So having said that, I will be in favor of this at this time, but I would say to any resident coming forward, please utilize their full 10 minutes when they are given it. And if they choose not to, then there's maybe consequences to that going forward, because those 10 minutes are precious to everyone. And I feel that everybody should fulfill those 10 minutes to be productive throughout. Thank you.
Anything else? Sure.
I want to point it out, thank you. I want to point it out that Mr. Page didn't speak because he was waiting for the answer. And he didn't get the answer. That's why he was there standing like frozen, and we could see that, but he didn't get any response for it. He would just say, can you speak? Can you speak? But he was waiting for the answer, previous question, what he asked. And he never received. Or maybe he wasn't satisfied with the answer that he received. So that's why probably what happened.
You can't stand still for 3 minutes. So
It wasn't 3 minutes. It was maybe like 15 seconds, but, you know, but it wasn't 3 minutes. Yeah, thank you.
I would have to agree that Mr. Page may come back up and speak to what he did not finish. And Mr. Page, I believe, stood up there waiting for his thing to be changed for what he was going to speak about. That's why he stood there. I have no problem. So.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your own words, you quote, you allowed additional or extra time for Dr. Page. That's actually an untruthful statement. You didn't. I was the one who wanted to give him additional time. So I'm not sure where you said you gave him additional time, because you didn't. The record is clear. The audio is clear. Yeah, it is true. But beyond that, Mr. Chair, in the procedures bylaw, it says the chair may limit time to 10 minutes. The chair may limit time to 10 minutes. You do that. But yet council would like it to be extended sometimes. So here you use your discretion to limit people to the nth degree all the times. It really is an exclusionary club where you want to limit people, you want to not allow them, and on it goes. I think it's absolutely critical that we have delegation, especially particularly now because we don't have question period. We've closed out the public. It's really, really a negative tone that we've set for the public. Not only are people irate about that, but they're asking who did this. And so I would support what the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kaczynski and Councillor Warren are saying. Absolutely. Let's embrace Dr. Page and any other delegation that comes forward to us today. Thank you.
Okay. I've just got one comment that I'm going to insinuate that I'm the one that did this is a decision of council. Absolutely a decision of council. I had one vote like everybody else, and it was passed for 10 minutes. So I just wanted to clarify that the situation. And if we can get a show of hands,
Of course.
So this was moved by Councillor Kaczynski and seconded by Councillor Miller to allow an unscheduled delegation.
those in support, I get a show of hands. It's Melinda, Mark, and Andy, and Glenn. Are those opposed? And myself. So passed. Sorry, you're laughing there, Mark? Or a joke? Mark? Mark, you're laughing for something?
I don't need to answer to you, but you're the one who voted against the delegation. Let the record show, and it will. Thank you.
All right, maybe we'll put it in some business.
We'll schedule a delegation right at the beginning if council allows.
Okay, what else?
So just need approval of the agenda now as amended to include the unscheduled delegation. So that was moved by Councillor Kaczynski and seconded by Councillor Miller. Just need a vote on that amended agenda, please.
Show hands for approval of the agenda. There's unanimous and it's carried. And we'll add this page to come up as well.
Maybe just do approval of the minutes and then we'll have the delegations following that.
Could I go to number 4? That's approval of the minutes. Move for a second for item number 4, please. Anybody have any questions with regards to approval of minutes? That's for February 14th. I see none. So hands those in support. Unanimous and it's carried. Okay.
Thank you. I don't know why it sounds so loud. Okay, then we can get Mr. Page to come up. Just so before you start, you have 10 minutes. As soon as you state your name, sir, and only 10 minutes, we'll give you a warning at the 2-minute level there. Either myself or Christy will let you know at 2 minutes, and then you have to stop at 10 minutes. Pardon. Can you get some water for me if you don't mind? Okay, Mr. Page.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come back and give this delegation with this new information. For just before I proceed, this will be part of my presentation, just because it was said earlier, there were a number of fact items that were mentioned that I wanted to make sure were clarified, because I did spend a lot of time trying to document what happened on Tuesday last week, just because it was mentioned a few things that were absolutely false. So just for 2 things quickly, because this is a delegation about addressing misinformation. Specifically, I was hoping to just talk about December 17th, but some new information has just appeared. The actual presentation I gave was around 9 minutes long, not 10 minutes. I had timed this out quite carefully, and anyone can go to the audio to verify, or the video I used to document this that I released last night. Now so the other thing worth noting is that I did request a reason from the CEO. My counselor did as well. No such thing, like I never actually got a response. And it should be worth noting for council, just to be aware that they need to look carefully at the role of a CEO when it comes to denying a delegation. Are they operating as an administrator, or are they operating on fiat based on a discussion? So I was looking for reasons why it was denied at that time. Maybe this is something to be discussed after, but let me get to the new information that I want to present. So as I was discussing at the end of last delegation, so think of this as a sequel. I brought a clipper from that was dated January 2nd, 2025. So this was meant to be information I was hoping to give council earlier, but I was going to talk about 3 different passages from page 7 of that clipper, because there was some information here that the council should be aware of. It mainly involves 3 different claims. So on page 7, there's mainly 2 kind of collections of passages I wanted to talk about. The first one, it says the following about the middle column on page 7. It says, Therrien said, Action for Canada was at the December 17 council meeting handing out messaging about the procedures bylaw and efforts to remove the invocation and question period, claiming that as a Christian nation, the removal of prayer is an incremental attack against democracy and the very foundation of the nation. Now I was at this meeting, and I'm going to bring it up with me. Let me see if I have it here. I did have a replica of the actual documents that were actually given. What it actually was actually a pamphlet on smart cities. It was not actually messaging about that. That was not being handed out. I know because that individual that was at the meeting actually was trying to give me one of them, and it actually was one about smart cities. So that's the first claim. There was this claim about what was being handed out, and it said that Therrien had said this. So now I don't know if that's true or false. This is just what I'm trying to bring to your attention. The second one, this is one that's pretty much novel information, is that so it's really kind of 2 claims. Claims 2 and 3, that Charter Advocates Canada is related to Action for Canada, and that it sent alerts to members about Procedure Bylaw 2410, specifically about invocation and question period. Now, so the part in the clipper is actually in the rightmost column on page 7. It specifically says, and I'm going to read this verbatim, it says, a related group, this is after just discussing Action for Canada, Charter Advocates Canada sent alerts to members specifically about invocation and question period. Now, the specific parts of question are related groups, and also sent alerts to members about Springfield's procedure bylaw, specifically about invocation and question period. Now, those 2 components are absolutely false information. I had actually contacted myself when I saw this on New Year's Eve. I contacted Charter Advocates myself because this was definitely not what they were talking to me about. And we should be very concerned that information like this is going out about a charitable organization. So just as a reminder, from the letter that was given to the RM of Springfield, Charter Advocates Canada is a charity and civil society organization registered with the Law Society of Ontario. Their purpose is to uphold the enforcement of Canada's constitutional freedoms, civil rights, and human rights. Charter Advocate Canada's team of lawyers are dedicated to defending Canada's fundamental freedoms, including freedom of expression. Now, let's talk about this. So the first thing is that Charter Advocates Canada, they were quite bold to me in saying straight up, they are not associated with Action for Canada. They had a lot of problems with even that type of allegation made by the clipper. They did not want anything to do with that. The other thing is that it discusses and this is the more interesting one. It discusses about sending alerts to members. It's worth noting that the Charter Advocates Canada is actually funded by the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF, which does fundraising campaigns for Charter Advocates Canada. So Charter Advocates Canada, as an organization, they decided to write a letter to the RM of Springfield with their concerns about bylaw 2410 after receiving messages from concerned citizens such as myself. So you might ask, okay, well, like how does this all work? Well, kind of the last part of this is that, well, the RM of Springfield was actually who would publish this letter. It was not Charter Advocates Canada. They've actually explicitly told me, I checked and tried to find this myself. It was actually that the RM of Springfield published letter, not Charter Advocates Canada, nor the JCCF. This was published, of course, in association with the meeting that I gave a delegation at previously. Now, it's worth noting that I did not. This was Charter Advocates giving you this letter. I merely discussed it. So remember, it must be stressed that this letter, for anybody that goes and reviews this around the September 16th, September 17th, on the RM of Springfield website, it was not about invocation nor question period. In fact, it was quite explicit. It talked about the function of council meetings, but also it talked specifically about the public decorum section. So most important, this is what specifically they told me, is neither Charter Advocates Canada nor the JCCF publicized this issue to any of their donors. So it must be stressed, this is a charitable organization. They don't have members, they have donors. They didn't publicize this to their donors, and they have made no public posts about this. So these two components that's false information. Now, just to kind of wrap this up for you, just because I have time here, there was a passage at the very end, and I wanted to see clarity about this because I found the way it was written in the Clipper article to be ambiguous and kind of confusing to me. It specifically says in the very last paragraph of this article, it says, I'm going to read this verbatim. Yep. They say, so this is quoting our mayor, they say they're a majority, but they're an absolute minority, Therrien said, of followers of these groups. They have no business being in our RM. And this was immediately prior to the description of Charter Advocates Canada. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, thank you, Dr. Page, for your presentation and information. It is very unfortunate when any member of this council goes to the media and provides what you would allege is false or misleading information, and it's damaging to not only that patron. I think it may be on now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you, Dr. Page, for your presentation and taking again the time to come back to us. And I think it's important for us to be alerted to information that is shared in the media. And in this particular instance, the mayor is quoted as what you had said in verbatim, that these, I don't know it entirely, but it goes in the context of these types of groups aren't welcome in Springfield. I can't imagine that anyone would ever want to say such things, even if they're opposed to the type of group, unless they're of course a terrorist or something that is, how could I say, under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms challenges that. I don't know why anybody would want to say that any group is not welcome in our community. And so this just incites maybe arrogance and even exclusion. So in terms of the Charter Advocates, I think they're a very important group because they are the ones who uphold freedom of speech and the ability for their, as you say, not membership, but their donors who could in fact lie within our municipality. They could exist in our municipality to uphold the importance of freedom of speech. So I guess my question to you is very specific, and it has to do with, do you think the mayor may have posed some sort of discourse or disinformation in that article, when people are reading things like that, if they were a member of Charters Advocates or Action for Canada, they would feel unwelcome, wouldn't they, in Springfield, the way that that's quoted from the mayor?
So I'll speak to this, and as I said last time, I'll try to exercise my epistemic humility. So first, I can't say what's in the mind of the mayor and what was said, because there's an exchange of information that happened. And I don't know exactly how that went down and how that translation process got into the article. So that's just me trying to exercise the principle of charity. Now, when it comes to this specifically, and why I was saying on February 4th, is because, as you know, and as anybody that's read that Charter Advocates letter that was published by the RM of Springfield, that group is they are not a group of like conspiracy nuts or something. This is a group, in fact, that's one of the reasons they're explicitly saying they do not want anything to do with Action for Canada, to be quite frank with you. That's what they said to me by email. And the thing is, Action for Canada has their own positions. They're allowed to have those positions. That's what freedom of expression is supposed to be about. Just like Charter Advocates, they're allowed to have their positions and they're allowed to give their information. But furthermore, residents should be aware that they also have freedom of expression as well. Now, when something like this is written here, first, speaking as more of a guy who writes a lot, I was very confused by that passage. And again, like I said last time, I can't judge the author. I just say this is poor writing. I can't necessarily say what exactly was clarified by the mayor by when, for example, saying they're a majority, but they say they're a majority, but they're an absolute minority, and about this no business thing. Because remember, Charter Advocates Canada advocates for human rights and civil rights. I don't know if people that tend to be supporters of things like this, I think that's not really going to be kind of honest with you. As an optics thing, it's not a very good optics thing if you're thinking about it like that. But I most certainly was just a little confused by that passage. But again, I wish I knew more.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Page, for that. I just have one other comment and question, I guess, for you. So Charter Advocates, as you know, are trying to uphold freedoms of speech across Canada. And that's such an integral and important role to have. And for anyone to discredit them, I think, is shameful and quite frankly, out of their league. So I would embrace anyone challenging my point of view, anyone trying to say that I was wrong. I think that's so healthy for democracy. And for someone in a leadership position to say to the media that you're not welcome in our community is regrettable. How do you see that?
So the big concern I have is that, well, one, when communications like this from Charter Advocates come out. Now, as a reminder, I don't get paid to do any of what I've done here for the past several months. I've done this as an academic, as service to my community. Me reaching out to Charter Advocates, remember, as an organization, they decided to write a letter. They didn't have to do any of this. They were trying to help our community. So when I see hostile attacks against freedom of expression coming from our press, that concerns me. And if I think that's coming from this chamber, that concerns me even further as somebody that has seen persecution like that in this country.
Yes, I want to thank you, Mr. Page, for your presentation and explaining to the public. That's what it's all about, explaining to our residents what's happening in our municipality. And pointed out that if something wrong, then you know we have to point those things out. So, thank you.
All right, I'll just finish off with a few comments. I was not talking about Charter Advocates with that comment. And I can note that I've done many conversations with the press there. One example is probably just recently, I did a 45-minute conversation with a newspaper. And on the 4 lines of place at night.
All right, I'll start again. My mute was on. I was not talking about charter advocates with that comment there. Second of all, I did a 45-minute conversation with a newspaper not too long ago, and only 4 lines were placed from that there. So to take one comment there and without placing it, people can construe it there whatever way they'd like, and that's all. No question, just a comment. Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah.
Page.
No, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. But
Thank you.
again, just please take what I said on February 4th in context with this. The
Thank
ARM
you.
has an obligation if they're making mistakes like that.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.